Hello again, everyone. My name is Ethan Gerald. Again, I'm going to be describing here. I'm going to be describing sports fans. What I think a sports fan is, what constitutes, sport culture, and how fans can interact. Um, to me, a sports fan has to have at least overall, number one overall, an admiration for the game, the sport, the activity, that they're watching, that they take a liking to. Um, because then that would either whether you played when you were a kid, you like playing. There's also just some admiration for watching, seeing how it's played professionally, like at the peak of everyone's physical performance, or organized professionally, or you play it and it just brings you joy. Either way, it all starts out with enjoying the sport, enjoying the activity. From there, you know, picking a team to follow and to care about, to root for, to win. That can range. There's a variety of sports fans out there. Those that are loyal to the teams that their parents or their family members grew up watching and rooting for, or it could be a team way across the country that you just like because of their jersey uniform colors, or you like the city that they play in. I mean, it all just depends, and it ranges. Or you're a fair weather fan. You more, or I use that term lightly. You're a player fan. How about that? There's another situation where you can be fans of the players. I mean, like there's great examples like KD, Steph Curry, LeBron James, Giannis Antetokounmpo, Kawhi Leonard. I mean, they're stars. I mean, players. When you go and look back in history, I'm sure that there are people that they once certain players started playing for certain teams that attendance rates, and viewer membership, viewer how many times people are going to watch on TV, that's going to spike also because they're doing well. So that all coincides and correlates. Besides that, um, sports fans can show their pride and their support in a variety of ways. Um, you can watch the games, you can go to the games. I mean, it's a social event and like a whole social culture in itself. Um, it allows people to interact with others that have similar experiences, and you'll be surprised because it is a small world. Everybody goes through the can go through similar experiences when it comes to playing a certain sport when you're a kid and growing a love for it, and you lived in, let's say, Chicago for your entire life, and you support all the Chicago teams, the Bulls, the Hawks, the Cubs, the Sox, the Bears, Chicago Fire and stuff like that. Uh, or something completely different. You choose your own team and then you bond with people that just think that that team is, inherently good for any reason. But then it just strikes up conversation, it brings up viewpoints, it's a whole nother culture, and I think it's really unique. Um, so like that's that in the United States, from what I've experienced. Now, good fan bases, there's good and bad fan bases. There are fan bases necessarily, whether or not I've experienced good fan bases, I guess I would say the most loyal ones, the ones that are still attending games, even when they're performing poorly, would be a good example, of a good fan base, I'd say. So, let's look at the Chicago Cubs, for example. They didn't win a championship, I mean, until 2016, but before that, it was 108 years, and still in 2007, they had a 97.7% capacity rating, and they were second in the major leagues, for who showed up. And they still didn't win that year, but fans came out to support them for that, and so I feel like that'd be a good example of a good fan base. A bad fan base, or not so good fan base, would be one that only cares when they're performing well. They don't support the players. They either heckle the players. you know um, I think it's all just competitive, and they're trying to live vicariously. I don't know if that's the word correctly, through them. And since they're performing well, it just kind of resonates within them emotionally and physically, just different. And it is an emotional thing for some people. So that's where things can get out of hand. I mean, sure, you can cheer. I mean, everybody cheers. I cheer in good moments, and rooting on the team. I'll be talking smack. I mean, I'll just kind of make comments, but it's all for the fun of it. And I think that crossing crossing the line is something that people should be more wary about. Absolutely, 100%. Because today it's very easy to cross that line. I think, tensions rise, conflicts will rise, and things spread, and things get so much blown out of proportion due to what we experience every day. I mean, we have the latest update on professional athletes or celebrities that our culture decides to pay attention to, or because they're just in the spotlight, they have that unique position in society that we just report on them so fast. Like, news spreads so much faster nowadays. Like, word spreads, and the way it can spread can be impactful, in a video. I mean, you see video evidence, there's manipulation of video evidence and photographic images and stuff like that. So things can really, the sky's the limit almost at this point with the technology that we have. So I forgot what I was talking about in that side rant, but if we're still on bad fan bases, I think that's where it came from. A bad fan base I would have seen would be the Oakland Raiders. In the early 2000s, they had an aggressive, I think, culture surrounding that team. In the parking lots and in the stands, fans would try and intimidate, other teams or other fans, that just come to the stadiums to watch. I know that, certain, like at points in the game, they'd be violent in the parking lots where they would slash people's tires. I've had that threat. I've heard that threat before from my family members' experiences going there, that they had to pay extra money so that this other conduct wouldn't happen to their belongings, such as their car and their vehicle and stuff like that. So that's just, I would probably label them as a bad fan base. I mean, at the time, at least, that was early 2000s, almost 20 years ago. But in terms of good or bad, that's what I've experienced. And yeah, I think crossing the line becomes bad when you start harming people, when you start hurting their feelings. I mean, in extreme senses of conflict, or at least in extreme senses of fandom, there should never be conflict because it doesn't solve anything. I mean, if the Cubs beat the Sox 6-5, me getting into a fist fight with another Sox fan isn't gonna make the score more in Cubs' favor. I mean, if I was a Sox fan and I beat the pulp out of every Cubs fan I saw, that also wouldn't change the score and, have another team win. So I just feel like that violence and that negative, approach to the sport culture can be done away with, especially what I know now about hooligans and hooligan subculture, for football in England. It's aggressive, it's brutal, it's violent, and they're harming other people in fights. They organize fights, and I understand that they get rushes of adrenaline, through mosh pits, that type of similar activity, especially when you're in a fist brawl. That happens, that fight or flight emotion. But when you're causing damage to other people financially, physically, I just think that crosses the line with thousands of red flags and alarming signs. So I just think that should just be done away with. I think I'm thankful that it's not prevalent in sport culture in the United States, because that would just cause so many more issues, I feel like, and it would just kind of take away from the sport in general and what's being done and what we're experiencing, because we're no longer focusing on the game, we're focusing on who's the better fan. So thank you for listening to my 2 cents. I know this is a long video, so thank you.